Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Engaging Internal Comms. This is the show for employee engagers and internal communicators who like to keep up to date with all that is new in our profession. My name's Craig Smith from The Big Picture People. I hope you've been able to listen to the previous 10 episodes of this show. Next week, we have a fantastic interview coming up with Rob Baker from Tailored Thinking. And Rob's going to be telling us all about an idea that is fairly new to me. It's called job crafting, and how job crafting can be used in organizations to improve engagement and how that fits into a general engagement and comms strategy. If you've not been across to our website already, if you could, that would be fantastic. You can sign up to our mailing list there, and the website is www.engagingic.com. If you're on the mailing list, we'll let you know every week once the show's released, and we'll also let you know what's coming up in the next week's episode as well. We'd love to hear your feedback. Anything that you'd like us to cover in future episodes would be wonderful. We're starting to think about season 2 now. This is season 1. We're probably going to run for about 20 episodes in season 1. And then in season 2, we're going to do something a little bit different. Maybe some more group interviews, that sort of thing. Maybe I'll be doing a few episodes where I'm just talking myself about some areas that I'm particularly interested in and sharing some ideas with you there. But if there is anything that you'd like us to cover, you're particularly interested in, we'd love to hear about that. And the best way to do that is via our website, again, engagingic.com. We do have a Facebook group which we're building up, and it's going to be a long-term thing, but we are adding people. People are joining that on a regular basis now, and you can join that again via the website. There's a link there where you can ask to join the private Facebook group. Finally, I asked this again last week, and I'll just ask it again. If you could subscribe to this show via your podcast platform, iTunes, or whatever it is you listen to the show on, that will be fantastic. It massively boosts our visibility and findability for other people who are looking for the show, and it would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, now to today's interview. So in today's interview, we're going to be covering an area that we may not normally associate with employee engagement and internal communications, which is career management. But when we think about it, at the end of the day, one of the key drivers of employee engagement is our career on track? How are we doing? Have we got future prospects within the organization? So it is a really important area, but also I think for you as an internal communicator or as an employee engagement specialist, thinking about your own career management and how you are proactively managing it yourself. So I think you'll find it a really interesting discussion from that perspective as well. So we're going to be looking at the return on investment of having a strategic approach to career management within the organization, and how can managers, employees help and contribute towards the developing their own careers effectively as well. And I think if you think about this from a perspective of how that builds in with the other aspects of your employee engagement strategy, and also how you're communicating career development and career management within the organization, it does have some important implications. We're also going to be exploring about what managers can practically do now, and the importance, I think, again, which something that all employee engagers and internal communicators will resonate with them, that the line manager is actually owning that process and is actually driving part of that process along with the employee in question as well. So I thought this was a really interesting topic to explore in the context of engagement and internal comms. So my interviewee today is someone I've known for a number of years, and it's Antoinette Oglethorpe. Antoinette is an award-winning consultant, coach, speaker, and author, and has her own training and coaching company, which specializes in leadership development and career management. Antoinette has a career extending to a number of roles that she's fulfilled in leadership and development, and that's extended to Accenture. She worked for Accenture for a number of years, Avanade, and more recently, she's running her own business, which is Antoinette Oglethorpe Limited. Good morning, Antoinette. How are you?
I'm very well, Craig. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
That's an absolute pleasure. And remind me, I know you lived quite local to me up for a few years, well, for many years, and recently you've moved. Remind me where you're living now, please, Antoinette.
I'm in Buckinghamshire now, so I'm about 20 minutes outside Milton Keynes. So quite a long way from the northeast where I was for 12 years. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So yes, and but it's lovely. It's lovely to speak to you again. So Antoinette, we're going to be talking today about career management, which is I know an area that you specialise in greatly. Just tell us a little bit about what career management is from your perspective, and how you come at the this sort of area of your specialism.
Yeah, so career management is developing employees' careers in organisations. So that's what I specialise in. People sometimes think that career management is all about changing jobs or changing organisations. It actually isn't. It's the progression of a person's working life within an organisation as well as between organisations and between jobs. So my specialism, I think probably because I have a background in HR and internal learning and development, is about how can we retain, engage and develop people by helping them develop their careers within the current organisation.
Okay, and that's really interesting, I guess, for our audience, which are mainly employee engagement and internal communications. This idea that there's a link between proactively having a strategy around managing people's careers rather than just letting it happen, and the bottom line. So, could you give us an idea for the sort of difference that it would make in an organization if they had a strategic approach to career management in the way that you've just explained it? What's the return on investment? What's the business case for having a strategic career management approach?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, obviously this was all before coronavirus, but some research carried out by the Corporate Executive Board, who are now owned by Gartner, showed that 70% of employees were dissatisfied with what they perceived to be the career opportunities within their organisation. And that dissatisfaction was the primary reason for leaving a company. So once upon a time, we used to say that employees didn't leave companies, they left their managers. Now it seems that employees don't leave their managers, they leave companies because of career development. Um,
Okay.
and I mean, other research by CIPD has shown that some of the key factors that influence employee engagement are all to do with careers. So the fit between a person and their job, for example, is what is a key influencer of employee engagement. So if you can get that right, then you will get more loyal employees, employees who feel more valued, who feel they're progressing, and therefore have no reason to leave the company, but instead to engage and develop within the company.
Mm. It's interesting because I guess nowadays, I'm thinking back for my early career stages where the types of organizations I worked in, you had people there who'd been, were there for life almost. They'd been there sort of 20, 30, 40 even. I remember people who'd been there for sort of 45, 50 years, which seems incredible now. Do you think that the days of those sort of organizations are still, there will be people who still have that sort of tenure within organizations, or do you see it that it's more around maybe not as long as that, but organizations having people who are there for maybe 10, 15 years and getting the best out of them? Or is that a kind of a bit of I don't know, a bit of a simplistic way of looking at career management and the benefits of it, not only from an engagement perspective, but from a kind of a longevity and retaining talent perspective?
I think there are typically more opportunities for employees to develop their careers within the organisation than either they or their managers often see. Um,
Mm.
and with some creativity and with some collaboration across an organisation, there can be a lot more that's done to facilitate that. If the organisation is very small, then obviously it is going to be more limited. But I've worked in organisations that were really large, and there'd be any opportunity an employee was looking for existed within the organisation. It's just that they needed to navigate that system in order to find those opportunities. And, the forums needed to exist to allow, that discussion outside of just one line of reporting and across the organisation. So there's things that employees can do, there are things that managers can do, and there are things that HR, as a representative of the organisation, can do to facilitate this and make it easier.
Okay. Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. That's really interesting. We had another interview that I had a few weeks ago, and will be on one of our other shows. We were talking about. I was interviewing someone whose area of expertise was around cross-generational working, and it was really interesting because what he was saying is that he'd just been through a career change himself, and he'd found that a lot of people he'd spoken to, a lot of organizations he'd spoken to, have been talking about, we've got a lot of people who've been here a long time, and, we're going through natural wastage, and we need to bring lots of new blood in. So I think this whole idea that, that almost that people get to a point in their career where they we've just got to get new people in and churn them around. It's actually, and he came at that from a perspective that actually that cross-generational, more mature employees do still have a lot to offer, and through effective career management, I guess what we're saying, we could potentially be saying here is that is a way that you can hold on to that experience and utilize it in a way that means that you don't have to be constantly inducting and training and bringing new people into the organization.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is about getting the ratio right between recruitment and internal development. And my view would be that often the ratio would be more 60% recruitment and 40% development. And I think probably trying to shift that balance the other way around makes more sense because, as you say, recruitment is a very costly way of trying to develop and change and improve a culture. And we all know that culture change isn't easy, but having
Absolutely.
the people you've got as part of the solution, must be an easier way of doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to move on to the kind of people who we've got listening to this show, which this show is aimed at people who are working in employee engagement and internal communications broadly. There'll be a broader community of people who are working in different areas of organizational development listening in, I'm sure, I hope. And I guess one of the things I've found from working with people and having an experience of myself of working my way into those sorts of organizational development areas is that it is a career path that is tended to be not one that usually that people have set out to. So a lot of people who I know who work in internal communications have either come from a background in public relations, media, marketing, learning and development. But internal communications, albeit it's a superbly rich role, is somewhere they found themselves really through multiple career moves or multiple areas of skill. And similarly in employee engagement, I think a lot of people have come from employee engagement from either HR, maybe organizational development. Unless they've kind of really specialized in that very early in their career, it tends to be an area that you find yourself in and usually love as well. So I guess two questions, and we can answer them in turn. One is, if I'm a manager in a large organization and I am in one of those types of roles and I've got other people working for me, what are some of the things I can do to help manage my team's career more effectively? And then flipping it on its head, because I know your philosophy around career management is that it's not just about the organization and the manager, it's about the individual as well, and how they're proactively looking to manage their own career. Again, flipping it on its head for people who are listening and thinking, okay, how can I be more proactive, and how can I get more out of my career with this organization and develop it in the way I want to develop it? So maybe we look at those in turn. If I'm managing other people, and the two maybe to sort of in parallel, what can I do to help manage my team and my team's careers more effectively?
Yeah, so one thing for both managers and employees to be aware of is some of the shifts and trends that have taken place in career management that influence how we think about it. So we have, you mentioned kind of lifetime careers, and historically there was this view that you joined a company and you climbed a ladder and you stayed there for life, and it was all very linear and traditional. And the world has moved on. Jobs will exist in a few years that don't exist now. Jobs that exist now won't exist anymore. We have flatter structures. We have rapidly changing environment and organisations. And what that means is that career development isn't necessarily about changing jobs. And we used to define careers as changing jobs and progression as changes in status, grade, salary, etc. And that is very limiting for both managers and employees when you think about careers like that. And that's one of the reasons why managers will feel that they're stuck in the opportunities they can provide, and employees will feel limited in the opportunities available to them.
Right.
So instead, we need to kind of change how we think about careers. So rather than jobs, it's about our experience at work. And rather than promotions, it's about enhancing our value to our current and potentially other organisations. So I often say instead of jobs and promotions, it's about enjoyability and employability. What does your enjoyable experience at work look like, and how can you continue to develop so that you are more employable in the future? And actually, your description of how people ended up in the internal comms and employee engagement is probably because they have followed opportunities that give them the experience that they want in work rather than just going for a particular job title.
Right. Okay.
So
So I guess, sorry, go on. Yeah. So I guess that goes both ways, doesn't it? That's if you're managing someone, you need to look at the experience and enjoyability perspective, but also from the perspective of being managed, you need to maybe reframe what it is you want from your career away from just it being, money and status and the job title.
yeah, exactly. And so for managers, one of the things that they can do, so people often think, well, career development, it's all about the future. And then, of course, the manager says, so, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And the employee looks at them like a rabbit in headlights and doesn't know how to answer the question. And so the manager then thinks, oh, they don't want to be developed, and they give up on the conversation. And so what we recommend is that you break those conversations down. And as well as looking at the future, you look at the past. So help the employee reflect on their career to date, because that helps the manager in a couple of ways. It helps the manager actually learn more about the employee, because unless they have reported to them for the whole of their career, there is part of their career that the manager knows nothing about and can give the manager great insights at the same time as developing the self-awareness and the self-insight of the employee. So if they help them look at their highs and lows, say, or the things that they've enjoyed most or their most satisfying achievement, then that might inform what they might want to do in the future. And then when they do explore the future and their aspirations, their ambitions, again, we encourage them not to describe it in terms of a job title or a grade, but instead in terms of their experience at work. So what do they want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? Who do they want to be working with? Where do they want to be working? What do they want to be producing or delivering? Those kinds of questions that then open up possibilities and opportunities within the current role, as well as possibly broadening the role, looking at other projects or assignments, or potential moves, if that's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to work for a major American multinational, and on my last sort of career, my last career in a big organization before I had my own business, and I remember they had a really great career model, which was all around if you want to have a long-term successful career, here are the different elements. One was the main thing was deliver results, which was fine. If you don't deliver results, then that's kind of always going to be an issue. But two elements I always remember were critical experiences and knowing the business, what they called knowing the business cold. So it was really around making sure that you really knew the business inside out, how it made, manufactured shifted and sold its products, regardless of which part of the organization you worked in. But the other thing was around seeking out critical experiences, working on projects, being involved in key transformational events, which really kind of shifted the paradigm away from it just being, kind of deliver results was the only way that you could ever get a career enhancement. It was actually seeking out and looking for those critical experiences, which reframed it, and that was going back sort of 10, 15 years ago. So I always know it was quite insightful. So I guess what you've said there is there's two things then. One is as a manager, I need to be able to have those conversations and have the skills and toolkit to be able to do that. And then from me managing my own career, I need to reframe what I'm actually looking for and be less focused maybe on sort of more traditional, tangible measures of career success and focus more on the kind of intangible, intrinsic growth opportunities that I could be looking for, which will in the long term maybe give me some of the more tangible elements, but not, sort of the direct link is maybe more less sort of tangible. So I guess that brings us around to then the idea of what can we to start to do? So if I'm a manager of people and I want to be better at managing their careers, and conversely, I want my manager to manage my career more effectively and help me to sort of to get there. I think this sounds like there's definitely a key role for that manager in terms of having the right skills and having the right ability to be able to have those conversations. How can people get started on that? How can they realize and do an audit of what those skills that they need and start to sort of focus in on that?
So, yeah, I mean, the main thing that we find with managers, and, obviously we train managers in how to have career conversations. And the main thing we find is a lack of confidence in opening up this subject, because it is quite a personal subject. And, managers, the managers I meet are always very positive in their intentions. They want to be good managers. They want to engage and develop their people. They don't want to get it wrong. And therefore, because they're scared that they're going to open up a Pandora's box and they're not going to be able to close it again, the biggest mistake, if you like, that they make is just not having the conversation at all. The main thing is to have the confidence to open up these discussions and to realise that you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have the questions to help the employee reflect and think about this and engage in the discussion so that together there can be an exploration of opportunities. The manager does also need to have a certain amount of creativity in terms of how they might evolve the role and not let themselves get limited by a job description, not be hindered by thinking, well, if I've got two people with the job title software engineer, they've both got to do exactly the same thing, even though one of them prefers the user experience side of things and the other one prefers the deep technology. So there's that element. I don't know what else I was going to say. There was something else came to my mind in terms of their skills and confidence in terms of having those conversations. But that's
what sort of
main thing.
Yeah, what sort of tools? So you've given there some of the sort of mindset issues. So what are some of those questions, or how can people sort of there's a lot of key questions to be able to use there with the employee to start to really get them to maybe kind of really start to think about this for themselves and take some ownership. Because I guess it's almost like a coaching. It's you wanting them to take the leadership. You're not wanting to kind of end up in a situation where you're spoon feeding them. Well, why don't you try this, or why don't you do that, or maybe there's this opportunity. You want that to be a proactive experience for them. So what are some of those questions that a manager can use to elicit that kind of ownership from the career owner, as it were?
Yeah, so we have a career conversation model that looks at the past, present, and future. And we have 10 tools that we provide managers with questions to ask about those different areas. So questions to help the employee think about their current role. What do they like? What do they not want to change? What do they want to be different? And what would the benefit of that be? then exploring their career to date, as I mentioned earlier, helping them reflect on their skills and talents, helping them think about the future and what experience they want at work, and then questions to explore what the different opportunities might be within their current role and through other avenues, so that they can identify some clear short-term milestones to work towards and some action steps that the employee can take to make progress, albeit they may be very small steps. They might be about researching opportunities, finding out more about a different part of the organisation, or it might be an agreement between the manager and the employee that can be actioned right now in the current role.
Okay. And you've got a summary of that that people can download, and is that what you have as a resource that people can access, or is that something else?
No, we do. So if we have a few resources, we have an ebook called It's Good to Talk, which is all about career conversations in the workplace and introduces that career conversation model. And we have a career conversation toolkit that can be purchased from the website, which is those 10 tools with the questions. And we also have a career compass workbook, which is actually for employees to reflect on those questions and prepare for those conversations with managers.
Okay, and I'll put the links to that into the show notes, so if people want to access those, they can find them. This is a question that's come to my mind, and one that, and I don't want to kind of end on a sort of not a negative point, but in organisations where people have quite rigid job descriptions, how do you find it works there? Because I guess my experience may be working more in public sector organisations, that people do have quite rigid job descriptions, and opportunities to stretch outside of that are sometimes either frowned upon by the organisation, or there's kind of peer pressure not to take on responsibilities outside of your own traditional job. How have you worked in those sorts of environments, and is there anything you could recommend in terms of maybe helping to organizations, managers to sort of operate within maybe constraints like that, where things are very locked down in terms of what people can and can't do, or should and shouldn't do as part of their job role?
Yeah, we work in a lot of organisations like that, actually. And sometimes it is that they are trying to shift that culture, and that assumption is based on history and is not what they want in the future. So they're trying to change that, and that's one of the things that they're exploring. We also work in organisations where it is very contractual, and they are going to have to, move from one job and apply for another because their job is going to come to an end. But actually, these conversations really help in terms of them thinking about how to go about that and what they need to do in order to make that happen. The people that they need to influence, the connection to the needs of the organisation. So we talk about the ABC of career management. So the employee's ambitions, that's the A. The B is the business of the organisation, and the C is making the connection between those ambitions and the business. And so that can still help in those types of organisations.
Mm. And that was the penultimate question. The final question I've got on this, and I guess we in another one where we didn't sort of maybe talk about it in the preamble, but I'm sure you've got an opinion on it at the moment. Is we are recording this in spring 2020, so anybody who's listening to this in the future will remember what that was like, and what we're going through at the moment with the pandemic. And you did make reference to this briefly earlier. And again, I don't want to, turn this into a crystal ball thing, because obviously if someone's listening to this in sort of 12, 18 months time, it could be either like right or wrong. But just from your perspective, there's lots of talk now about people having like hybrid remote office, maybe fully remote job. How do you see that? How do you see the whole career management landscape panning out, and the kind of work that you do in this sort of post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting time. I mean, obviously, I'm biased, and I think there's going to be an increasing need for career conversations. People's jobs will change as a result of this situation. And therefore, there is a need for them to think about, how they would like to evolve this. People's jobs will be, organizations will be doing restructures. Well, how can they take individuals' aspirations and ambitions and opinions into consideration when they do that? Is one dynamic. The other is, I think people are reflecting very much on what they want from their lives and their futures based on this experience. I think it's all given us a bit of a pause for thought. And I think people reflecting on lockdown and thinking about what they've learned about themselves, what it says about what they want from their working life going forward, is actually a great opportunity for people to develop some self-insight and some self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's going to be really interesting. And yeah, look, that's been fantastic, Antoinette. So I mean, the key things I've taken away from that are, and I think you were, for me personally anyway, you were preaching to the choir as someone who's been brought up with a kind of philosophy of, it's your career. You don't expect, don't expect it to be managed for you. You need to be proactive, and you need to, you need to seek that out. But I think what you've talked about today absolutely echoes with my experience and my good experience of where my career has felt. When I had a corporate career anyway, when people were, it was being proactively managed. I was being encouraged to think about what I wanted from it. It wasn't just about chasing salaries and roles and places in the org chart. It was very much around the experiences and how those transferable skills. And it was very much around, when I managed people, my own ability to initiate and facilitate that as a really key part of my role as a manager, and understanding that, careers don't just happen, and realizing how important they are to the individuals that you're managing, and how it does determine their engagement with their work. So that's been real kind of some key reminders for me, but also some really key takeaways there of from what you've said. So, Antoinette, I know I kind of primed you on this, and I warned you it was something that I do at the end of all of my interviews, was to say, shock me. I've known you for so long now that you've got to try and shock me with something I don't know about you. But again, as I said, many of the listeners here probably don't know you, but there will be a few who do. So tell us something about yourself that even people who know you well may be surprised to say, "Oh, I never realized you did that, Antoinette," or that you'd done that. So come on, it's over to you.
Okay, so I don't know if you know this about me, but this lockdown has encouraged me to take up my clarinet again. Because when I was a teenager, I was actually a grade 8 clarinetist. But university and fun and drinking got in the way of all that. And I never actually took my grade 8 exam. I have very few regrets in life. But now when I look back at that, I think, gosh, I would have liked to have been able to say that I wasn't just grade 8 standard. I actually got the certificate to prove it. So I'm far from grade 8 now, but I am, starting again, using this time in lockdown to just assess where I am at in terms of standards, and hopefully develop the skills before I get so old that I'm too arthritic to play anymore.
Oh, that is amazing. I did know I did know that you played, but I didn't know you'd picked it up again. So that is really ambitious, because I mean, as someone who nowhere near grade 8, not even grade 1, I guess, bass guitar, picked that up again 3 years ago after years of absence and never really being able to play it anyway. I know what a big learning curve that is. So, on a scale of 1 to 8, where are you at the minute in terms of you're getting towards grade 8?
Well, I signed up for an online program, and I'm literally working my way through the grades. And I really only started last weekend. So, but I do have muscle memory. I could still read music. So I'm flying through grade 1 at the moment, and I'm optimistic I will fly through to grade 4 or 5, and then we might start struggling a little bit.
then you're into the sort of thin air when it comes for, yes. Okay, fantastic. Oh, well, good luck, and maybe, who knows, we'll maybe get you back in a few weeks' time. I mean, we can have a little rendition and test that ability. You can really put it to the test there. Maybe get you to record some little sort of sound inserts for the show as well. So anyway, Antoinette, where can people find more about you, about your business, about what you do? We're going to put the link to the ebook into the show notes. Give us a few resources or places that people can find out more about you.
Great. Yes, well, I'm very easy to find. There is only one Antoinette Oglethorpe. So if you Google my name, you will find me all over the first few pages of Google. I have a LinkedIn profile. We have a Facebook page. I have a Twitter account, although I'm not very good at that. The Twitter is at Antoinette Og. But the main resource is the website, which is www.antoinetteoglethorpe.com. And specifically the resources page, where we have a few different ebooks and toolkits and such like. And we also have an events page, which lists our upcoming webinars, which are free for anybody to attend.
Brilliant. And I'll put links to all of those into the show notes. So if people are listening and driving, they don't have to kind of scribble that down. They can find it in the show notes. Well, that has been absolutely wonderful, Antoinette. Lovely to speak to you again. Thank you very much for your time and your insights. And stay safe and enjoy the rest of this week. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Craig. It's been great to be on your show.
So thank you for listening to Engaging Internal Comms. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the show and any questions, ideas, or feedback that you'd have. Anything you'd like us to cover on future episodes too, please. So you can email us at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk. Or you can get in touch with us via the contact form at engagingic.com. You can also sign up to our mailing list there, and we'll send you relevant news about the show and anything that we think you might be interested in when it comes to internal communications and employee engagement. If you like the show and you haven't already done so, please subscribe to it directly via your podcast service. And you can also subscribe via the links on our podcast page, which again is engagingic.com. If you like the show, we'd be really grateful if you could leave us a review, and also if you could leave some verbal feedback there as well, not just stars. That's always nice to know that we've been appreciated, and particularly how we've helped you. If you know anyone else who might like the show or might benefit from it, please tell them, please share it with them. Please share the link to our website, engagingic.com. And that will be great, because we want to grow our community. We want to get as many people involved in the show as possible. And the bigger, the better. Okay, thank you.